Okay. Right on or in. But I felt it was like, many paths on one path. Or in one path, the way I'm perceiving it, it could be the same. Okay, sorry about that. So, it has come to my attention that the human effort is an energetic movement. As this energy moves in the void, it gives itself, it contains itself. When I say many paths on one path, it's kind of like one mountain where everybody's climbing. Or, it's one giant doorway that all must cross, To be honest, we don't know what intelligence is. We know how we are being intelligent. In the subtitle I've written, Might of the Hidden. One of the most beautiful quotes I've ever heard is from a man named Rabindranath Tagore, and he says, "Faith is the bird that feels the dawn while it's dark." And imagine, there was oh my God, I gotta share this story with you. There's this epic story by this Persian Sufi mystic poet named Attar of Nishapur. And the story goes that Attar is writing like this kind of like, I don't know what the exact term would be, but pretty much he's writing like this story where all the birds in the world gathered around to find the great phoenix. And so they all started flying on one great path. But after days and days and days and the longest time imaginable, all the birds in the world, eventually many of them got tired and slowly stopped flying. They accepted their reality rather than continuing to pursue. At the end of it, there were 30 birds left alone, 30 birds that were fearless. 30 birds that never could give up because they had nothing else. The truth of the phoenix was beyond their acceptance of their limitation, really. So what happens in this story is that these 30 birds cannot find the phoenix, and then suddenly a miracle happens, and then they realize they are the phoenix. And this is why in the Farsi language you call the term phoenix Si-Morg. Si means 30, Morg means bird. So phoenix in Farsi, it means 30 birds, And it's this beautiful story that consciousness is looking, all types of consciousness. It's like there's a certain direction Many paths on one path is the implication that the world soul knows where it's going. Whoever you are, just like a warrior that finds itself in a random battlefield, you need to equip yourself immediately. What this means is like physically, I'm not telling people to go buy guns. What I'm telling people is that as consciousness emerges in an unknown world, one of its first strategies is to equip itself. Now, what does consciousness equip itself with? It equips itself with constancy of meaning, with a framework. You know, it's so bizarre. When I was younger, I was under the impression, even though there was like spirituality and the idea of the soul, but I was under the impression that all actions were physical. Okay, what that means is I felt even the non-physical was inspired because it was watching the physical, was trying to move the physical and all of that. So what I'm saying is that it has come to my attention that if we are not just physical, then a physical solution and strategy is not enough. When we think of what are non-physical strategies we have, this is where it gets interesting. Why? Because we have religions, we have mystical traditions, and there's this poem by Hafez, this other Persian mystic poet from like 700 years ago or something. I'll read this poem for you. It's one of the most incredible poems. Hafez says, "The great religions are the ships, poets the lifeboats. Every sane person I know has jumped overboard. This is good for business, isn't it, Hafez?" You see, this world has a way of communicating to ourselves through our own communication. This is what mankind has been ignoring and is one of the biggest clues. The biggest clues to the mystery of what we are is self-communication. Not other communication, not world communication, but self-communication. What that means is, how do you communicate with yourself without doing anything, without moving? What did Lao Tzu mean through action, through inaction? What I'm starting to realize is that life at first felt like a problem, felt like my own problem I had to solve. It's like, oh my God, I'm alive. What do I do with this? You know, it was like that kind of attitude. Then it became, wait a minute. If the intention of reality was to be alone at the end, why are we aware of others? For me, one of the most bizarre things about reality, and even the theological lens, was that man fell from the Garden of Eden not because he was responsible for the context of the world, but he was responsible for the concept. You know, it's kind of like saying, how is it possible for an entity to deceive other entities in heaven? Heaven is divine jurisdiction. Okay? That means it's kind of like, imagine like, I don't know, like a skyscraper, a boardroom of a skyscraper, and it's like like, you know, like bandits run into the skyscraper or something like that. Like it would be as if like there's a security. The security is conscious of every room's activity, right? So when it comes to the creator's consciousness of activity, it was in some sense this might sound bizarre, but the fact that God had to test man was not a suggestion that God had doubt. Do you see, sometimes I feel the whole human story, if we had a sort of celestial, metaphysical, theological approach, context to this, it's as if God is trying to teach an angel something through man. But man's role is to, in some sense, play man's part. Do you understand? Imagine a soccer team. Imagine you've been awakened into consciousness and you're the defender or the goalkeeper of a soccer team, or you're the striker of a soccer team, football team. Now imagine if the goalkeeper wants to go score a goal because he thinks he's free to do whatever he wants. The coach will be like, WTF, get back in the net, you know, help your team win, right? And so that's the idea, right? We are kind of born in positions, but there isn't a collective conscious acknowledgement of those positions, of those roles. I found it incredible that the same time I am living a life, so many countless other beings are living a life. And it's as if space is the common denominator of all consciousness that can, in some sense, break to itself. Do you understand? There could be another side to the coin. There could be that this whole time we've been alive as the space of our world, not just the stuff in it. Another good title for this episode would have been, Could the life of space be beyond matter? You know, this episode is really just an observation. Okay. This seems workable. Oh my god, I found the perfect song. Okay. So, I guess the path we're on is what we deserve. Really, our judgment on reality is based on what something meant in the past, what something means now, and what something will mean in the future. When you look at the past, you had control, but you no longer have because the past has been passed. You look at the present, and in the present you have control, a certain amount of control, but when new experiences arise and the brain doesn't have familiar patterns from before, there may be some, tensions and mismovements. Really, attention is the secret key to the door of manifestation. Attention opens the world, and by a single ability to move, change its direction, it can close the world. So it is fair to say that we are in a world when we have access to one, when we can, in some sense, have a shape, a referential shape. Everybody has two types of sight. There is your body sight, and then there is your mind sight. The body sight is what you see in front of your eyes, through your eyes. Your mind's sight is what you see when you close your eyes. Do you believe that? You can see this whole time. Everybody can close their eyes and see. Even if you don't have visualization ability, right? Let's say you haven't practiced that, so it's easy. So like close your eyes and visualize like a blue cube, hovering above your hand and slowly moving and glowing, slowly spinning around itself. Like, you understand? The mind can project image in the space where it also finds existential image. So the mind finds existential image and then replicates it, and then can use an experiential image. The brain is doing something genius. It is literally converting like a file. Like, imagine you're converting like an MP4 into an MP3 or something, right? Or an MP3 into an MP4, right? It's converting, or let's say you convert like, a bunch of pictures, they're in JPEG, you convert it into a PDF. Whatever, I'm pretty much saying that there's existential image access through the biological eyes. This existential image is instantaneously converted into an experiential image behind one's eyes. Now the idea is, right, think about it, that if we say what is the central point that human attention revolves around, that means if we were to think about every human being we've seen, what is their attention? Where is their attention? Where is their attention centered? And what's obvious is our attention is centered on ourselves. You're born in this world given advanced machinery, advanced technology, which is your biological existence, right? So in this life, right, really this world is like a world for like driving students, believe it or not, like flying students, believe it or not. Right, there is a probability that Earth in the far future will become, like an interstellar airport and whatnot. You know how on YouTube there's videos that can convert? Like, I don't know if anybody knows this, but you can download any YouTube video with an like, you know, there's converters out there. And everyone can download these videos, these talks of mine, by the way. I wonder how many human beings I have seen in this lifetime. I wonder how many verbs and nouns I have acknowledged in this lifetime. I wonder, after all the analysis, after all the contemplation, one realizes that they are left not with their personality that changes in accordance to the environments they enter and new information comes. And advanced humanity will appear once it acknowledges the mountain is its responsibility. That means right now the human position is like you're responsible as a climber. You're not responsible for the mountain. You're not responsible for your world. You're not even, you know, most people are not even responsible for their species. You know, it blew my mind when I realized even my own grandparents, you know, that they cared for their grandchildren. You know, like it's like, what is it? A human being cares for their family. You know, they care for their children. They care for their grandchildren. Let's say they even live long enough to see their great-grandchild. But after that, most people usually don't care. And that is the selfishness of humanism. We think that us living our lives just for ourselves is good. That's fucked up. Because who else is going to fix this if everybody's crawling into their own cave of fantasy? Their own fantastic cave of, okay, I'm just a single being here. I'm going to just live a single life. And who gives a shit about the context that all the concepts appear in? And that's the problem. We have forgotten about the context because we're too emotionally obsessed in being a specific concept in the moment. Do you understand? They have made people stupid by in some sense making them forget that your understanding of a concept is based on a context. Do you understand? Right? Like, let me tell you something about civilization. It is beautiful from one angle, but from another angle, it is also a bit savage. Because savageness is part of us. To be a human being, and in every situation of your life, even if you do something bad, you still tell yourself, I'm a good person. Do you know? Like, let me tell you something. You have one lifetime to live honestly, but you have also one lifetime to live honestly in the context of yourself. That means if you were in the presence of your greatest self, how would you behave? If you were in the presence of the most advanced species, how would you behave? In the most advanced civilization, how would you behave? If you were in the presence of the most advanced reality, the most advanced world, how would you behave? That was what changed in my life, right? When I realized in front of my eyes, sure, I may just be a creature. I may just be like how there's so many different flowers in a garden. Do you know, I may just be a creature existing. But there is something else, something that notices this existence. And it converts its efforts into experience. Do you understand? Something is running through the branches of the world, flying between the branches of the tree of knowledge. It is not knowledge, it uses it though. So it's as if like the inconceivable is using the invisible to move the visible. So the visible realizes the invisible is moving the visible. But once consciousness stabilizes into an acknowledgement that it's invisible, then it's going to still go another phase. We need another couple thousand years to go to inconceivable. This is why I said the year 3600 is the year where we move, excuse me, not the year 3600, 3600 years from now. We will, the species, the creatures, conscious biological creatures will have the opportunity to move beyond, to advance beyond the language threshold. What that means is right now, you are a self in the world, and your mind, your brain is pocketing the world. When I say pocketing, what that means is it's taking information and putting it into itself and changing how itself is being in the information. Do you understand the ability of consciousness to shift between informational landscapes, to move, to be aware that there is the good and bad at the same time? There is the secret of consciousness. It cannot be dual. And these poor, philosophers in academia, they're like, yo, man, what can we say? It's panpsychism. Stop, it's atheists, stop whacking us with a stick on our head. It's consciousness. It becomes like, just think about it right now, guys. Before the word consciousness, what did people have? They called it soul. Okay? They called it soul. Nobody knew the word consciousness. Nobody was like, I'm being conscious of this, conscious of that. They would see a body and they would see when the last breath would leave, it was as if something left. It would appear that way to them. One of my own biggest mysteries is that when my last breath comes, will the dead wood be smiling? They have made us think knowledge is something you go to the store and you pay for it and they give you. Sometimes I think the world my mind finds itself is lucky. Not because it's something for me. It's because once you get a few of your universal memories, you will have a ridiculous dehumanized comfort with ways of being that are not known in this universal sector. That are not known, into the conscious human history. You see, the ability is always of an intimate interaction with the essence of life. Okay, that's what everybody's looking for. You're not you're not looking for, a secret, a letter from the, which it's like, oh my God, was this the freaking truth? I opened the envelope and the truth was there. It's not like, to some degree, it's one of those things that you can sit down, articulate it as much as you want, and then realize in the presence of infinity, consciousness is animate. It's not in the personality of the finite that it's occurring. That means our intelligence knows, because the world is so vast, it doesn't have to put an effort to understand, because every single something new that happens reveals the worlds behind it. They broke the atom. They found subatomic particles. They broke those. They found quarks. They kept breaking that shit. They went to 11 strings, string theory, the 10, 11 vibrating dimensions at the core of, the most micro fathoming. And even if we understand an engine, just think about right now for a second that the human consciousness is like a car, okay? Just think about it, it's like a vehicle. Okay, it's like a vehicle's engine. And so scientists are opening the hood of the car, right? As if imagine consciousness is just a car. We can't see the driver's seat, the passenger seat, the back seat, and all of that. We can only see the front of the engine of the car. And we don't even know it's a car. We just see a freaking engine, right? And scientists are like, yo, how does this engine work? Yo, how are the neurons moving? What is this hemisphere of the brain doing? How does it associate to the frontal lobe? How much of the brain do we know what is going on? What's going on actually? How much of it is our own fiction? How much of it is actually the accuracy of non-fiction? And so, even if the scientist opens up, you take out the car engine and you understand every part of the car engine, right? There's going to be some like young guy who's been waiting to drive a car his whole life, and he's going to be like, hey, neurologist, hey, everybody trying to understand the engine. It's designed, even if you understand how it's designed to be used by consciousness. Do you understand? That means even if the consciousness is understood to arise from the brain, it doesn't explain why consciousness finds validity of use, meaning of use, or intent of use, purpose of use. I don't know what to say. And my laptop's gonna die, guys, so part 2 is coming up on it's gonna come up in a couple minutes after this. But anyways, guys, this is an incredible metaphor I'm saying, right? Isn't it the case where it's as if we're studying the brain like an engine, and imagine somebody studies the engine of a car, but then they're like, I don't understand why this engine was designed, right? It's like, I don't understand. It seems like something has to ignite it. Something has to start it, right? And then you suddenly discover the driver's seat. That is the soul. Then you discover the passenger seat. The passenger seats, that's the Akashic records. You understand the space where the vehicle is in. That's the Akashic records. Do you understand? This world is designed for a user interface, but the user is not based on the interface. Like, it's weird. It's like our bodies are being like divine hardware. Our minds are being like divine software. Do you understand? And poetically, the soul is the one who just bought the laptop, you know? Do you understand? Like, some people say, I am a soul. They think that they are a soul right now. I would say what I am right now is being used by my soul. It is not my soul. If you think I am this voice, you're wrong. If you think I am these words, you're wrong. If you think I'm a human being in a universal event, you are also wrong. But for now, we have to play with the human idea. We have to honor it. And the idea of the natural biological human is the shield of humanity in its journey against an immortal victory. Not against, but towards an immortal victory. Do you understand? I sat down and I thought, like, whoa, what does this mean? Everybody I know, all my enemies and friends, every person on this planet, it's like, are we all acknowledging that just like the human being dies one day, the species is gonna die one day? Is that enough? I understand, oh religious people of the world, you have seen an afterlife to the individual human. Oh, awesome. But have you seen an afterlife to the species? To the efforts of all human beings? Do you understand? This world, and the point of religion is that you are not a being that can die. You are experiencing life and death. You are not a being that can die. This doesn't mean physically. I mean, physically, you got to be cautious. Go to the gym. Drink your protein shakes. But but what I'm saying is, it's like we were never something that was from here. So if we die here, something that was not from here technically cannot die here, because it's not from here. You see, the body is. My body is something where, I'll be honest, there's been times where before I've slept, I've just saluted, put my hand on my, like where my, like a salute, and I've saluted every cell of my body that has been under the command of my consciousness, which has been an entering force. Something I have realized about consciousness is that it enters, or it is its own entrance. The personality is already, before being a personality, present as space. Your mind is awake even though you may not have a conceptual sense. Like when you look at children, right? Imagine time travelers in the future, right? They were so fascinated. Imagine a group of scientists so fascinated by Einstein, right? They created a time machine just to go back and try to film like Einstein's childhood or something, with like stealth drones or something. And so they wanted to see what kind of a child Einstein is as a kid. And it's as if they imagine Einstein was the most foolish kid ever, right? He was, imagine a fool. Imagine it was like, what's funny? I remember when I was a kid, right? This was like when PlayStation 1 had come out. There were still these toys they were selling. There was this toy my parents had bought for me and my brother where it was like these small, like dinosaur plastic figures, but you would put them in a bowl of water, and you would wait like a couple days, and it would like suddenly grow into a bigger toy, like a deformed, mushy like dinosaur or something. And when I look at the human being, when you look at, like, I've seen pictures of my own, like, I don't know if people do this, but I've tried to look at my own eyes as a kid. Right, so I've looked at, like, it's like I've grown up, I've looked at pictures of myself, and I've tried to look at my eyes and be like, what kind of being is that? Because sometimes when I look through people's eyes, I can feel how intensely their inner realms want something from the outer realms or doesn't. Not always, not per se all the time from an emotional context, but I can pretty much figure out, if I see a person's eyes, I can figure out with what sort of contextual intensity they're in, to some degree, So anyways, guys, quick intermission, and I'll be back for part 2. Thank you for listening to part 1, many paths on one path. And perhaps an advanced civilization is found when we realize we're advanced. So anyways, thank you for listening to part 1, part 2 coming up.